Your spirit has a natural rhythm of expansion. It reaches higher levels, explores deeper truths, and refuses the limitations others place upon it. But when your spirit grows, their ego feels threatened. And when the ego feels threatened, it lashes out. This is not a personal attack. It is the universe showing you who is anchored in insecurity and who can truly walk alongside your light. Their bitterness is not a reflection of your value. It is the mirror of their fear. The ego fears being outshined because it cannot tolerate vulnerability. It resists the unknown and clings to a narrative of control. Your freedom, your self-awareness, your courage, they shatter the fragile constructs of their comfort zone. And that is why some relationships suddenly become toxic, why some people start to despise the progress you've worked for. Growth triggers resistance. This is a principle observed across human experience, yet so often misunderstood or dismissed by those caught in the flow of their own development. When an individual begins to evolve, to step into the fullness of their potential, the very act of growth stirs unease in the environment around them. The ripples of personal transformation do not exist in isolation. They reverberate outward, touching relationships, social dynamics, and the collective sense of comfort that others rely upon to feel secure. For many, these ripples are unsettling because growth inherently challenges the established order. It confronts the familiar and exposes the hidden fears lurking beneath the surface. When a person steps into their authentic power, it is not uncommon for those tethered to fragile egos to respond with subtle or overt resistance. Resistance emerges first as discomfort. Those who encounter the evolving self may feel threatened by the light you shine or the confidence you exude. Their insecurity, often unconscious, interprets your expansion as a direct challenge to their own sense of worth. This is rarely a rational reaction. It is an instinctive defense mechanism. The ego, fragile and defensive, resists that which it cannot control. Your growth reminds them of what they have neglected, suppressed, or avoided confronting in themselves. Every moment of self-realization you experience acts as a mirror, reflecting back the areas of stagnation and fear that others refuse to face. They may respond with criticism, jealousy, or subtle attempts to diminish your accomplishments, all in an effort to restore their fragile sense of balance. This resistance is often silent but potent. It can appear as avoidance, gossip, passive aggression, or even sudden withdrawal. When growth manifests externally through changes in behavior, attitude, or expression, it unsettles those who rely on predictability and conformity to maintain their own equilibrium. The subconscious mind interprets your evolution as a threat to its control, and the ego mobilizes to protect itself. People may act in ways that seem irrational, disproportionate, or hostile, yet beneath these behaviors lies a deeply rooted fear, the fear that your progress exposes their limitations. It is crucial to understand that resistance is not inherently malicious. It is a signal, a marker that your presence is catalyzing an internal confrontation for those around you. Their discomfort is often a reflection of their own inner work left undone. Your growth forces them to confront the parts of themselves they have neglected, and this confrontation can be painful. The ego, protective by nature, does not welcome such disruption. It seeks to maintain control through judgment, projection, and manipulation. As your light grows brighter, their shadows appear more pronounced. This is why resistance is often most intense. When growth is most profound, it is the ego's desperate attempt to restore order in a reality that has been disrupted by authenticity. Resistance also appears within ourselves. As we evolve, we may encounter internal opposition. Doubt, fear, and self-sabotage emerge when the ego perceives growth as risky or uncomfortable. Personal transformation is never linear. It involves confronting ingrained habits, dismantling outdated beliefs, and embracing vulnerability. The internal resistance mirrors external resistance, demonstrating that growth is a multidimensional challenge. Both within and outside, the journey of evolution requires patience, discernment, and resilience. Recognizing that resistance is inevitable allows one to navigate it with awareness rather than frustration. One of the most profound aspects of this dynamic is the silent education it provides. Resistance, when observed without reaction, becomes a teacher. The pushback we encounter reveals the depth of our own commitment to growth. It tests our resolve, sharpens our discernment, and highlights the difference between attachment to approval and allegiance to authenticity. Each act of resistance encountered externally can be seen as an opportunity to strengthen internal boundaries, refine emotional intelligence, and cultivate the wisdom required to navigate human complexity. Moreover, the universality of resistance underscores a timeless truth. The evolution of consciousness is never entirely comfortable. It demands courage, for every step toward higher understanding may provoke opposition. Social, cultural, and relational ecosystems are designed, consciously or unconsciously, to favor stasis over expansion. Growth disrupts this stasis, and disruption is inherently uncomfortable. By recognizing the inevitability of resistance, the individual learns to move through fear, judgment, and disapproval with equanimity. The paradox is that resistance itself is a form of validation. It signals that your evolution matters. It demonstrates that your growth carries weight, that your spirit exerts influence in subtle yet undeniable ways. Those who resist you are often the ones most sensitive to the changes you embody, for they are confronted with truths they may not yet be ready to integrate. In this light, resistance becomes a mirror rather than an obstacle, a reflection of the internal tensions that must be acknowledged for deeper understanding to unfold. The tension between ego and spirit is one of the most profound dynamics in human life, shaping decisions, relationships, and the trajectory of personal evolution. The ego is the construct of identity built from experience, social conditioning, and the need for control. It defines itself through comparison, achievement, and recognition, constantly seeking validation from the external world. The spirit, in contrast, is the eternal, unbounded essence within, a force of authenticity, intuition, and inner knowing. While the ego clings to control and permanence, the spirit flows, expands, and resonates with deeper truths beyond the confines of superficial approval. Understanding the conflict between these two aspects of self is essential for anyone pursuing meaningful growth, for every act of true evolution will inevitably bring them into confrontation. The ego is fundamentally protective. It thrives on certainty and fears the unknown. Its purpose is to maintain a sense of identity and stability, ensuring survival in a world often unpredictable and chaotic. However, this protective instinct can become restrictive, leading the ego to resist the natural expansion of the spirit. When the spirit begins to awaken, to push boundaries, and to seek authenticity beyond societal expectations, it inherently challenges the ego's comfort zones. The ego perceives this as a threat, generating anxiety, doubt, and defensive behaviors. It attempts to reassert control by fostering fear, promoting rationalizations, and clinging to familiar narratives. This internal struggle is often experienced as indecision, inner conflict, or the nagging sensation of self-sabotage, where one desires growth yet simultaneously fears it. Spirit, however, does not operate from fear. It operates from alignment, resonance, and truth. It draws energy from authenticity, from the courage to face the unknown, and from the willingness to embrace vulnerability. The spirit does not seek to dominate, impress, or accumulate. Its expansion is not measured by external metrics, but by the depth of inner connection and awareness. When spirit begins to assert itself within the individual, it illuminates the limitations imposed by the ego, revealing patterns of control, insecurity, and attachment that have dictated past choices. This illumination can be disorienting, even painful, as the ego resists letting go of its familiar structures. It is often this resistance that gives rise to inner tension, as one feels pulled between the comfort of the known and the transformative potential of the unknown. Relationships serve as one of the clearest mirrors of the ego versus spirit dynamic. The ego seeks dominance, recognition, and validation, often engaging in subtle forms of competition or comparison. It measures worth based on external feedback and fears being eclipsed by another's light. The spirit, in contrast, moves with compassion, authenticity, and understanding, not requiring validation from others to confirm its value. When two individuals interact, the ego tends to clash with ego, and spirit often finds itself constrained or misunderstood. This is why growth in one person can provoke envy, hostility, or resistance in others. The ego is threatened by what it cannot control, while the spirit simply radiates its presence. Within the self, the ego versus spirit struggle manifests in the form of choice. Every decision becomes a test. Will one act from fear, pride, and attachment, or from alignment, courage, and integrity? The ego whispers, urging caution, conformity, and self-protection, while the spirit calls for expansion, authenticity, and trust in the flow of life. Moments of transformation, whether in career, relationships, or personal development, expose the ego's limitations and demand that the individual cultivate discernment, courage, and resilience. Growth is not a straight path, but a series of oscillations between ego resistance and spiritual clarity, requiring constant attention and reflection. Dreams, intuition, and inner guidance often belong to the realm of spirit, offering insights that bypass the ego's logic and fear. Yet the ego frequently attempts to interpret these messages in familiar ways, diluting their meaning to maintain comfort. The practice of listening to spirit requires patience, humility, and a willingness to confront discomfort, for it often challenges deeply ingrained beliefs, assumptions, and desires. As spirit begins to dominate the consciousness, it reshapes perception, values, and priorities, shifting attention from external validation to internal resonance. The ego may initially respond with confusion, resistance, or even hostility, as its structures are dismantled and reoriented. The interplay of ego and spirit is not inherently adversarial, rather, it is a dynamic of tension and balance. The ego, when properly integrated, provides grounding, discernment, and the capacity for practical action, while spirit provides vision, authenticity, and purpose. The challenge lies in recognizing when the ego dominates, obscuring the voice of the spirit, and when the spirit is ignored, leaving the ego unchecked and rigid. Awareness of this tension is the first step toward harmonizing these forces, allowing growth to occur without internal sabotage, and enabling interactions with the world that are both empowered and authentic. Silent reactions are among the most subtle and profound indicators of the human psyche's response to change, growth, and authenticity. They occur not through words, but through gestures, avoidance, glances, shifts in energy, and the unspoken tension that fills a room. When an individual begins to evolve, to assert their true self, and embrace their inner power, those around them often respond in ways that are invisible on the surface, yet deeply telling. Silent reactions are not always malicious. They are manifestations of discomfort, fear, envy, or confusion. They reveal the inner workings of the observer's mind, exposing insecurities and egoic fragilities that cannot reconcile with another person's expansion. Understanding the nature of silent reactions is crucial for anyone navigating the path of personal growth, for they provide a mirror to both the external environment and the internal landscape of one's own awareness. At their core, silent reactions are defensive. They emerge from the subconscious, arising when the ego perceives a threat to its established sense of control or superiority. Unlike overt confrontation, which is easily recognized and addressed, silent reactions operate beneath the surface, often unnoticed by those experiencing them. A colleague's avoidance of eye contact, a friend's sudden withdrawal, a family member's subtle coldness. These behaviors are not random, they are unconscious responses to the observer's rising presence. The individual who grows in awareness, confidence, or spiritual alignment inadvertently illuminates the stagnation, fear, or unresolved tension within others. Silent reactions are the ego's attempt to reassert equilibrium without overt conflict, a way of containing discomfort while maintaining the illusion of normalcy. One of the most challenging aspects of silent reactions is their ambiguity. Unlike verbal criticism or explicit hostility, they are open to interpretation. A subtle sigh, a delayed reply, or a fleeting frown can be perceived in multiple ways, often triggering self-doubt or over-analysis in the one who is evolving. The mind seeks to assign meaning, to decipher intention, and in doing so may spiral into unnecessary guilt or defensiveness. Yet these reactions are rarely about the individual at whom they are directed. They are reflections of the observer's inner state, the projection of their fears, insecurities, or unintegrated shadow aspects. Recognizing this allows one to maintain perspective and avoid internalizing the discomfort of others. Silent reactions also serve as indicators of relational boundaries and alignment. Those who cannot tolerate another's growth may unconsciously distance themselves, creating subtle barriers of disengagement or passive resistance. In this way, silent reactions reveal who is capable of holding space for transformation and who is not. They offer a quiet form of discernment, allowing the individual to observe the compatibility of relationships without overt confrontation. Awareness of these patterns empowers one to navigate social dynamics with clarity, reducing emotional entanglement and promoting conscious choice in personal interactions. Psychologically, silent reactions highlight the interplay between the conscious and unconscious mind. When someone witnesses growth in another, their conscious mind may express neutrality or politeness, while the unconscious mind reacts with tension, resentment, or envy. This dissociation is often subtle yet powerful, creating microsignals that the growing individual can sense intuitively. Those attuned to such nuances can interpret these silent cues as valuable information, guiding decisions about trust, engagement, and energy investment. They reveal the shadow dynamics at play, the hidden resistances that shape human interaction, and the ways in which unintegrated ego manifests in subtle, often invisible behaviors. Silent reactions are not limited to social interactions. They occur internally as well. As one evolves, the mind may generate self-sabotaging doubts, internalized criticism, or hesitation. These internal silent reactions mirror external ones, reflecting the ego's ongoing resistance to growth, change, and uncertainty. By observing these internal signals without judgment, the individual can cultivate greater self-awareness, strengthen resilience, and maintain alignment with their deeper values. This inner vigilance transforms silent reactions from sources of confusion into tools of insight and empowerment. In many ways, silent reactions are a test of presence and equanimity. They challenge the individual to maintain composure, authenticity, and clarity in the face of unspoken resistance. Responding to silence with anxiety, defensiveness, or overcompensation only reinforces the egoic patterns of both parties, while observing with detachment allows the growing individual to maintain integrity and energy. Silent reactions also underscore the importance of discernment, understanding when engagement is constructive, when observation suffices, and when detachment is necessary. Ultimately, silent reactions are a natural consequence of growth. They are the echoes of transformation in those around you, the subtle tremors that signal disruption of stagnant patterns, and the reflections of egoic discomfort that accompany exposure to authenticity. The individual who recognizes the meaning behind these reactions gains insight into both others and themselves, understanding that resistance is rarely personal and often unconscious. Detachment as power is one of the most misunderstood yet transformative principles in human growth. Many equate detachment with coldness, indifference, or emotional withdrawal, but in truth, it is the conscious cultivation of inner freedom, clarity, and sovereignty. It is the ability to remain grounded and aligned with one's values and purpose, regardless of external circumstances or the reactions of others. Detachment is not a form of avoidance. It is an act of mastery over one's own energy, attention, and emotional responses. It is the recognition that the world around us, including the people we love or confront, will always contain elements beyond our control. and that true power lies not in controlling them, but in maintaining alignment with our inner truth. At its core, detachment arises from awareness. When one is rooted in consciousness, it becomes possible to observe events, relationships, and challenges without being consumed by them. The detached individual recognizes the difference between influence and control, understanding that while actions can be taken to guide or shape situations, the outcomes ultimately extend beyond personal authority. This awareness liberates one from reactive patterns that so often dictate behavior, allowing responses to emerge from wisdom rather than fear. In this way, detachment is not absence, it is presence informed by clarity. A detached person engages fully, it remains unshaken by the need for approval, recognition, or validation from others. Detachment also serves as a shield against the corrosive effects of egoic conflict. When the ego feels threatened by another's growth, presence, or success, it seeks to dominate, manipulate, or provoke. Engaging with these projections emotionally often results in wasted energy, heightened tension, and diminished clarity. Detachment, by contrast, allows one to witness these interactions without being drawn into the reactive cycle. It transforms what would otherwise be confrontational into an opportunity for observation and understanding. By choosing not to internalize the judgments, criticisms, or attempts at control from others, the individual preserves their power, energy, and peace of mind. This form of mastery is subtle yet profound, shifting the locus of power from external validation to inner sovereignty. One of the most striking aspects of detachment is its paradoxical influence on relationships. Those who practice detachment are often perceived as strong, confident, and magnetic. The absence of clinginess or dependency creates a natural authority and gravitas, for people are drawn to those who are self-contained and self-aware. Detachment does not push others away. Instead, it creates space for authenticity, mutual respect, and balanced interaction. It allows relationships to evolve on their own terms, free from manipulation, coercion, or emotional pressure. In this sense, detachment is a subtle form of leadership, guiding without controlling and influencing without demanding. Detachment also enables a deeper engagement with personal growth. When one is no longer bound to the need for external approval, fear of judgment, or attachment to specific outcomes, the mind and spirit gain clarity and flexibility. Choices can be made from alignment with values rather than the compulsion to conform, and risks can be taken without the paralysis of fear. Detachment, therefore, functions as both a lens and a lever, a lens through which the world can be observed with precision, and a lever that amplifies the capacity for intentional action. It creates an inner space in which insight, creativity, and spiritual expansion can flourish, unimpeded by the demands of others or the pull of unresolved egoic patterns. The practice of detachment requires discernment. It is not an abdication of responsibility, nor is it a retreat from compassion or empathy. Rather, it is the conscious choice to engage in ways that honor both one's own boundaries and the autonomy of others. The detached individual can participate in challenging circumstances, offer guidance or extend support, yet remain unentangled in the emotional turbulence that may accompany such situations. In essence, detachment transforms vulnerability into strength, sensitivity into clarity, and presence into unshakable equilibrium. Detachment as power is also deeply linked to the understanding of impermanence. Recognizing that all things, relationships, outcomes, material possessions, and even social approval are transient allows one to release attachment without resistance. By internalizing this truth, the individual gains freedom from the compulsions of desire and fear, navigating life with a steady, grounded awareness that is not swayed by external chaos. This freedom is not static, it is dynamic, allowing for engagement with life's complexities while maintaining the integrity of the self. Ultimately, detachment is the alchemy of inner strength. It converts the pull of external influence into an anchor of inner stability, It allows the individual to move through the world with grace, presence, and intentionality, observing without reacting, participating without attachment, and influencing without coercion. It is a practice of alignment, a discipline of consciousness, and a declaration that true power resides within. Transformation opportunity arises in the moments of challenge, tension, and resistance that life presents, often when least expected. It is the recognition that what appears as conflict, discomfort, or obstruction is not merely an obstacle to overcome, but a doorway to a deeper understanding of self and existence. Every encounter that provokes discomfort, every relationship that triggers resistance, every event that challenges our expectations carries within it the potential to catalyze profound growth. The essence of transformation opportunity lies in the reframing of perception, seeing not the external turmoil or the projected negativity of others, but the invitation for conscious evolution hidden within it. Human beings naturally resist discomfort. It triggers fear, frustration, and defensiveness. Yet it is precisely in these moments of friction that transformation begins. When another's ego reacts negatively to our growth, or when circumstances seem to impede progress, the mind and spirit are presented with a choice to succumb to reaction, resentment, or retreat, or to observe, reflect, and respond from a place of awareness. The opportunity for transformation is embedded in the capacity to pause, to witness one's own emotional responses, and to discern between the impulses of ego and the guidance of the deeper self. Every challenge is a mirror, reflecting back unresolved aspects of the psyche that demand acknowledgement, integration, and mastery. Transformation opportunity is inseparable from self-reflection. When resistance is encountered, it forces the individual to examine their own inner landscape. Questions arise: why does this situation provoke such a reaction? What fears or attachments are being triggered? What unconscious patterns are being reflected by the external circumstances? These inquiries are the foundation for personal alchemy, converting discomfort into insight and insight into growth. The obstacles presented by others' insecurities or by life's unpredictable nature are not random. They are aligned with the evolution of consciousness, guiding the individual toward deeper clarity, resilience, and authenticity. Moreover, transformation opportunity highlights the interconnectedness of internal and external dynamics. Every conflict, confrontation, or friction with others is often a projection of unintegrated elements within oneself. Observing the reactions of others, be they judgment, hostility, envy, or avoidance, provides insight into one's own shadow, the unacknowledged parts of the psyche that influence perception, behavior, and emotional response. The opportunity for transformation exists in the conscious engagement with these reflections. By embracing the discomfort and examining it with honesty, the individual initiates a process of integration, turning previously unconscious patterns into conscious understanding. This process also requires courage. Transformation opportunity rarely arrives cloaked in comfort or ease. It presents itself in ways that challenge identity, force difficult decisions, or expose vulnerability. The ego resists, craving stability, certainty, and validation, yet the spirit recognizes the necessity of disruption for evolution. Those who seize transformation opportunities cultivate resilience, emotional intelligence, and discernment. They learn to navigate tension without losing alignment, to engage with resistance without being consumed by it, and to extract the lessons embedded within adversity. Each moment of discomfort becomes a classroom for the soul, teaching patience, presence, and the art of responding rather than reacting. Transformation opportunity also emphasizes the importance of detachment. When the ego becomes entangled in the outcomes of conflict, in the judgments of others, or in the desire to control perception, the potential for growth is diminished. Detachment allows one to observe without attachment, to engage without being consumed, and to learn without defensiveness. It creates the psychological and spiritual space necessary to process experiences fully, extracting insight without being overwhelmed by external pressures. In this way, transformation becomes not a forced or rushed process, but a natural unfolding guided by awareness, alignment, and conscious choice. Furthermore, transformation opportunity invites the individual to embrace paradox. The same event that evokes discomfort can simultaneously be the catalyst for profound self-discovery. The same person whose ego reacts negatively to one's growth can serve as the mirror reflecting hidden fears, unhealed wounds, or areas requiring integration. Life presents these moments repeatedly in relationships, career challenges, and personal trials, offering continuous opportunities to refine perception, deepen self-awareness, and cultivate inner strength. Each encounter is a laboratory for consciousness, allowing the individual to experiment with perspective, emotional regulation, and authentic expression, and to observe the consequences of alignment versus reaction. In recognizing transformation opportunities, the individual moves beyond a simplistic view of adversity as negative. Resistance becomes not a threat to happiness or progress, but a signal, a prompt to examine the self more deeply, to confront the ego, and to embrace the processes of shadow work, awareness, and spiritual maturation. Every difficulty, every reflection of fear or projection carries with it the seed of evolution, a chance to expand perception, refine character, and strengthen the alignment between the inner self and outward expression. Transformation is woven into the fabric of every challenge, revealing itself to those willing to perceive beyond appearances and to engage with life's friction as a teacher.